We are looking live at College Station, set to become the epicenter of the college football world as day 2 of round 1 of the 2025 college football playoff gets set to go. The Canes rolling into town to try and take Kyle Field by storm. The first playoff appearance for both these storied programs. 2 great quarterbacks, 2 big-time defenses, and a lot on the line to try and punch their ticket to the quarterfinals. As we welcome you guys into the Bleacher Report College Football Playoff pregame show presented by AT&T. Connecting changes everything. I am Mike Golic Jr., former Notre Dame Fighting Irish football player, current TNT broadcaster, here with my guy Ray G, Bleacher Report contributor, analyst, everything we need today. And Ray, how lucky are we to be sitting down here in a pair of beautiful recliners on the Bleacher Report app, the YouTube channel, getting ready to preview this game, talk about the madness we saw last night.
Yeah, Mike, it is a beautiful scene out here right now. I mean, the weather is beautiful, the field looks good, and we got some good college football action today. And last night, Alabama, woo, what a game. What a game.
Unbelievable. What a great start to this year's version of the 12-team playoff, our second year with this expanded playoff. And what we saw last night, a preview of what we're going to get to see today here at Kyle Field. The unbelievable atmospheres here in these home stadium environments. I feel for the teams that got those first-round byes. They earned it with their play, but they miss out on these scenes that have quickly become some of the most special in college football, as you see a ravenous pack of Hurricanes fans waiting for their team to pull up right now outside of Kyle Field to get their chance to try and go out here and make this statement. Mario Cristobal, the Hurricanes head coach, a national champion as a player, getting ready to lead this team to where they've been knocking on the door for the last couple of seasons. Cam Ward and company couldn't quite get over the hump this year. Carson Beck and the Hurricanes managed to make their way into the playoff with a really impressive showing here. But these atmospheres, these home game environments for the playoff, there really is nothing like it that I've seen in my lifetime watching this sport.
Oh, absolutely, and that's what makes it great is you do have that home field crowd, that environment, the comfortability, right? This is Texas A&M's backyard, and Miami traveling in today for this one. They better match the energy. They've got to match that energy in this environment.
Well, speaking of that home cooking here, the home team making their way onto the field. Texas A&M's arrival, the Aggies, led by their head coach Mike Elko, has done a phenomenal job since coming back to College Station. We know was here as a defensive coordinator for years, went over and had great success at Duke, and now he's got this team, this defense rolling, and he's got a quarterback in Marcel Reed who's made great strides in his second year as the starter for this program.
Absolutely. I think there were a lot of question marks about Marcel Reed coming into the season, but the way that he's played of late, to have this team in this position right now against this squad, I mean, Marcel Reed is the captain. He's going to have to come out here and really carry this offense, move the ball, and show Miami, hey, this is SEC ball. We deserve to be here. This is our home field. We're coming to bring it to you in this one.
He's got a great challenge that we'll get to in that defense for Miami and the job that they've done this year, led by the ACC Defensive Player of the Year in Ruben Bain. But Texas A&M going to have the benefit of this home crowd on their side that I know they're looking forward to. We're looking forward to hearing from you, by the way. Everyone watching along in the app on YouTube, feel free to hit us in the chat. Ray has got you guys live right there, so we're going to hear everything you're saying. If you got questions, comments, concerns, if you want a drink order for the morning as you're getting ready to go, we'll try and do our best to help and serve the audience here. In the meantime, Ray, why don't we look back at what we got last night? A tale of 2 halves and really maybe 2 quarters in this game. The first college football playoff road win in the CFP expanded era. Oklahoma goes up early in this game, 17-0 on Alabama, and the Tide walked them all the way back down to get the 34-24 win. Ty Simpson starts the day slow, 3 straight 3-and-outs, ends the day 18 of 29 for 232 and 2 touchdowns. This incredible catch that I think from Jeremy Bernard will probably be one of the indelible images of this run. If it becomes a run for the Alabama Crimson Tide, what impressed you most about their ability to battle back in this game?
Well, it was just that, their ability to come back in the game. It started off rough for Alabama in that one. And I think a lot of people were thinking, oh no, are we going down a blowout path here in this one, right? But the way they ended the half, and then the second half adjustments, Mike, they came out a little flat, and I kept telling people, hey, let's see how Kalen DeBoer and this team responds in the second half, and my goodness, they put on a show. Simpson was outstanding. The defense made plays. For them to battle back like that, I think that was a big win for Alabama.
It was massive, and the performance they've continued to get, his stats aren't up there. Freshman Latzir Brooks at wide receiver had the 2 touchdowns on night, including the one on 4th down that I think really kickstarted everything we saw from the Crimson Tide on offense. For whatever real reason, Ryan Williams has taken that step back this year. Jeremy Bernard, maybe the most versatile piece, but Brooks and the job that he did fighting to get to the end zone, to break through, and to let that Alabama sideline calm down. Like, the quicksand in these moments can get you if you're not prepared. You're on the road. It's a hostile environment. Everyone's been telling you you don't belong in this tournament if you're Alabama. They were one of the teams, again, back-to-back years where they've been the polarizing team on the bubble of this tournament. Last year, they're on the outside looking in. This year, they make it in, and everyone's telling them all through the first quarter of that game, Notre Dame should have been here instead of you. Nobody wants this. Kalen DeBoer is going to Michigan. And so for everyone, coaches, players involved, to be able to go back on the sideline and say, hey, lock in, reload. We weathered the early storm, and I think that ended up being the difference, right? For John Mateer in Oklahoma, you came out and you had all that extra time to window dress everything, to do all the moving around Mateer, and to get him comfortable. He looked healthy, spinning the ball downfield. And then all that burned away, and you had to play ball. And that was when Kane Womack, the defensive coordinator for Alabama, really seemed to sink his teeth in.
And you said it right there. You've got to tighten up, button up, and go play ball. Defensively, offensively, they locked in. And you've got to give credit to Kalen DeBoer. He's been under fire of late as well. What's he going to do? Is his team ready to play? They didn't win this game. Can they overcome what's happened? And they did that. They did that.
I mean, look at that tweet. For all the conversation that people have around Kalen DeBoer, and I understand he's not Nick Saban. No one's going to be Nick Saban anymore. I got news for you, folks in Tuscaloosa. What you got handed is one of the handful of the best coaches in the sport. And so I understand why the Michigan conversation was happening. Because, of course, the Wolverines would want Kalen DeBoer. I never thought it was realistic, because why would you leave the Alabama job? And if you're the Tide, why would you want him to leave based on what we've seen right there? 20-5 now versus nationally ranked teams, 8-3 at Alabama, 4-0 against AP top 10 teams in true road games. That is rare air that you're touching, and it might look different and it might sound different than what you're used to, but that's a guy still making it happen here as we get to see some of the big fellas cutting it loose down here on Kyle Field here. Again, you are looking and watching the Bleacher Report College Football Playoff pregame show presented by AT&T. So an incredible game last night. As you look at that, you see what we've got building outside this stadium right now, the Canes fans traveling here in full force. Did that Alabama team last night, in their effort in the comeback, convince you they're capable of winning multiple games in this playoff?
You know, I don't know if it convinced me that they can win multiple games, but it convinced me that if they're in a matchup to where things look a little rough at the start, right? They're in some controversy. They face some adversity, that this team, led by Kalen DeBoer and Ty Simpson, they can battle back. I don't think you can count them out. Absolutely not. This is a team that when they're on, I mean, Mike, they looked incredible offensively. Some of the throws from Ty Simpson at that point. And then you talked about the catches from those receivers. You've got to have people step up when your star or the perceived star receiver in Ryan Williams is not performing. Who else is going to make plays? We saw Horton make plays. We saw Brooks make plays. And that's what I'm impressed about, is some of the other unsung heroes that stepped up in that game.
Yeah, Josh Cuevas back at tight end. It was huge. Missed the SEC championship game for them. One of the most off-targeted players for Ty Simpson. My worry now, as we turn the page to the Rose Bowl for them, is you never thought you'd be saying this, right? I'm not sure they've got the firepower up front to go toe-to-toe with the Indiana Hoosiers. A real statement said in 2025, but one I kind of believe, because this Alabama offense still looked pretty one-dimensional last night. They were able to get more out of their running game than we've been used to seeing, but that's still a group that can't count on that series to series in a way that you're going to need, because on the other side, what Kane Womack did was incredible. But John Mateer, we know, in a different tax bracket right now as a quarterback than Fernando Mendoza, who's a supercomputer, the Heisman Trophy winner, and has been nails at the helm of this offense. So they're going to have their hands full trying to rein him in defensively, and then offensively on the other side, can you be balanced enough to make that defense not be able to all sell out on the passing attack of Ty Simpson.
Well, you nailed it. Can they be balanced? One of the few teams in this college football playoff bracket, they don't want to run the ball. They can't run the ball. Miami's going to have to find a balanced attack because Indiana, talking about Fernando Mendoza, defensively, that's going to be a tough task. And it does feel a little weird saying this in 2020-25. Indiana as a football powerhouse, but make no mistake about it, that team is good, both offensively and defensively.
Fun subplots there is obviously you had Curt Cignetti at one time at Alabama on Nick Saban's staff, and during one of the best seasons in modern IU history, you had Kalen DeBoer and Kane Womack as the coordinators for IU back in 2019. Let's take a look at the game that we got coming up here in College Station. Miami rolling into town here, 10-2 on this season, the losses to Louisville and SMU in the midway point of the year. But since then, the Canes have really dialed back in. Carson Beck's been taking care of the football. This defense has remained the standard bearer for them, and they've been one of the best teams in the country. Texas A&M, on the other hand, was perfect all year until the last game. They play against their rival in Texas, and things didn't go their way. And so leaking confidence a little bit at the end of the season. Which of these teams do you think can roll in here today feeling the most comfortable with where they're at as a football team?
Well, I'll say Miami. I say Miami in the way that Carson Beck played the last 3 games. He started off hot, then he hit a little bit of a lull, but his last 3 games, I mean, you're talking about a quarterback, 80% completion percentage over the last 3 games, close to 300 yards per game for Carson Beck, and he's got a dynamic playmaker in Tony. I think coming in to this field right here in Texas A&M College Station, the weather's going to be good. It's not going to be inclement weather.
No.
This is great football weather. Can Carson Beck show some of that poise and the experience that he has? They've got to feel good coming in to this matchup.
And one of the guys that Carson Beck is going to have to keep an eye on is the SEC Defensive Player of the Year, Cassius Howell for Texas A&M, one of the best sackers of the quarterback in college football, on a defense that, with Mike Elko on the sticks and with what he brings as a coordinator, this was a place always full of incredible talent, but the way they can affect you, presenting different looks up front, but still being able to win just rushing 4, trying to change the picture on the back end so that Carson Beck has to hold the ball a tick longer. And you see, if you give him an extra half second, Cassius Howell's going to find his way there. Been one of the big draft risers this year, incredible bend around the perimeter, high-end motor, and that ability to finish. As we see, both conferences Defensive Players of the Year here, Cassius Howell, Ruben Bain. How do these guys compare when you look at them, both as players that are going to affect this game and prospects that we know the next level is excited about?
Well, you brought up Cassius Howell and the explosiveness. I mean, that jumps off tape right away. Cassius Howell's ability to bend the edge, force offensive tackles to make a decision, right? You jump out on them, I'm going inside. I'm going to try to stab inside. I've got the speed and the athleticism to take it around the edge. Cassius Howell can go get it. He's a monster. He's physical. But then Ruben Bain, that's a nasty player right there, Mike.
And see, like, people are going to look and see 11.5 sacks and 4.5 sacks and go, why are we talking about one guy next to the other? I promise you, if you've ever turned on a Miami football game and watched the way this defense plays, you need not look at the production and let that dictate how you feel about Ruben Bain. Ask opposing offensive coordinators how they feel about a guy who is a certified wrecking ball on the edge of the defense. He's such a unique body type. People are going to talk about arm length going to the next level and some of the measurables, but he's so compact and powerful, and I think this defense has done such a great job of getting him and Akeem Mesidor on the other side, who's another great rusher you've got to account for, one-on-one matchups by adding a 5th rusher, adding a 6th rusher, and making sure that offensive tackles have to try and sit down and anchor against a guy who's the low man who's almost always going to win.
Listen, you can tell me everything you want about arm length, size, all that stuff. Turn on the tape. Can Ruben Bain play ball? The answer to that is unequivocally yes. He's powerful. He's explosive. And his other running mate, Mesidor on the other side, I think it's strength on strength here. I mean, defensively, this front for Miami, led by those 2 guys, they will cause some problems for Texas A&M today.
It's going to be a great matchup on both sides of the football up front as you see Cassius Howell getting ready for this game. Francis Mauigoa on the other side, the offensive tackle for Miami, another guy highly thought of going towards the next level, and part of a group that is really the identity that Mario Cristobal wanted to bring, right? For years at Oregon, we knew Mario was going to build his offensive lines big, sturdy, and powerful up front. And when you look at this group, really both offensive lines, big, imposing groups up front. And with Miami, where they can take and move Malachi Tony all over the field, I think is the other X factor in trying to mitigate some of this great defensive play you're going to see on the other side, trying to make sure they've got an awareness of where 10 is at all times.
You have to. You have to. That is the type of player that can flip the game in one play. He's dynamic. One of the nation's leaders in screen yards, yards after the catch. He's dynamic. You don't see kids that young, that explosive, and that talented be that impactful. He's the guy for Miami. Can Texas A&M limit Malachi Tony, those explosive plays? We'll see.
It's going to be incredible to try and watch, as he's a guy you mentioned. Will get loose in the screen game. Will line up in the backfield as a running back, as a quarterback. They've let him throw the football before. It feels real Booby Miles-esque, and he can pass. So as we look ahead again to this one, for you, what's the biggest key that you're watching for tonight in this game that you think is going to swing whoever wins or loses this?
It's the quarterbacks. Which quarterback? Because they're going to be plays. They're going to be big plays, and they're going to be mistakes. But which quarterback can limit those? We've seen Carson Beck, when the turnovers come, they come in bunches, right? Can Carson Beck on the road keep his composure, get the ball, be on time, stay on schedule? And on the other side, Marcel Reed, he doesn't run often, but when he does, he can be dynamic. Can they control the game on the ground with their rushing attack, pop the explosives, and limit the other team from having those big plays?
Yeah, I think you just mentioned it. It's the legs of Marcel Reed that I really want to see tonight, because when you look at things, this Miami defense has been nails against so many teams, but you go back and look where they've had trouble. SMU making use of tempo, trying to get them a little bit out of their element of pinning their ears back and attacking, and then some of the quarterback run that can also show up at times from opposing teams. You've got to make them account, be +1 in the run game to try and help, because if you're not, they've got an overwhelming advantage up front with the guys they've got there. It's going to be a great battle against this Texas A&M team. We're dodging football.
Yeah, we're dodging football
down here. Oh, my God. I just realized we're in the blast zone, and now we'll never be the same for the rest of this broadcast here. Kickers, we pray for your accuracy. If anyone's got it, if you guys have video of that, make sure we're going back to flip that now, because we are on thin ice out here.
Yes, we are. Be careful, Golic. Be careful, baby.
But, yeah, no, I'll go legs of Marcel Reed on this. Again, like you said, can't major in it, but you go back to last year when he took over halfway through the LSU game for Texas A&M. That ended up being the difference for them when you looked at what he was doing versus the incumbent at quarterback. So I think that'll be huge tonight going up against this defense here. Chat, we want to hear from you guys. If you got any questions, if you guys see any footballs coming your way. Ray, do you see anything in there?
I've got one, Mike.
Okay.
Here's one right here. It says, does it matter who wins today? Ohio State will win next week. So my question to you, I mean, do either of these teams, in your opinion, stand a chance versus Ohio State?
I do. I think they both would have a decent shot. Now, Ohio State, probably the most talented team left in the tournament when you look at multiple consensus All-Americans. The first round of the NFL draft is littered right now in most mocks with guys from the Buckeyes offensively and defensively, and Jeremiah Smith is carrying a little bit of extra anger coming off his snub in his eyes, I'm sure, for the Blitnikoff Award. But I look at the Ohio State offensive line, and we saw Indiana was able to give them some trouble up front, stymie that offense a little bit, make life a little bit more difficult for Julian Sand in the middle of that. And I think that's still the area for this Ohio State team where against defensive fronts like this, if you can go and bother the quarterback and try and gum up that offense, I think you got a good chance of sticking around.
Absolutely. Affecting the quarterback with pressure. If you can do that, you have a chance. And I do think that both of these teams absolutely matter. Whoever wins this game and moves on, they do matter, and they do stand a chance against Ohio State.
Absolutely. I think the one thing we've learned about college football right now, especially in the NIL transfer portal era, is the curve is flattened a bit. A truly dominant team may not exist. Indiana's felt close at times, but it feels like a lot of teams had a chance. And that's why I think as we look at the discussion around the playoff field, there are so many strong emotions. When we had the 4-team playoff, it hardly felt like we ever had 4 great teams.
Right.
The first round was usually full of blowouts in the semifinal round. But now that we get to the 12-team, we saw last year the run that Ohio State and Notre Dame made as lower-ranked seeds going through the tournament. This year, you wonder and feel like a lot more teams have a chance based off what we've seen, and that's why the Notre Dame discussion was such a dominant part of Selection Sunday. The Irish ranked ahead of this Miami team for so long, despite Miami's head-to-head win at the beginning of the season. The committee saying one thing and then doing another that I ultimately think very defensible. Like putting Miami in over Notre Dame makes sense. Similar resumes, head-to-head win, that should will out. The way that we got there, a little difficult. So it got us to wondering around here. What would it have looked like if Notre Dame had made the college football playoff, if they were in this slot that Miami was in? And apparently we have run some simulations on what this game against Texas A&M would look like. You know about this and have seen this. I do not. So what are we working with here?
I'll just say this. The simulation package that had to be run, it wasn't like one or two, Golic. I mean, they had to run that simulation quite a few times, quite a few to see the result of that matchup.
All right, let's see it. I'm ready for whatever happens. All right, by the way, EA College Football 26, I am awful at. I'm in a dynasty league, and just it's not going well for me right now.
Here we go, here we go.
All right, CJ Carr yeeting it into the distance. Oh, my God.
There we go.
Did he really do that? Okay.
That's a nice catch right there.
Okay, Faison, Notre Dame's very own two-way lacrosse star. Marcel Reed back in the pocket.
Back, sack, safety.
A safety
play. There we go.
I tell you, but anyone walking around the field right now is going to be very confused and pissed off. Jeremiah Love.
Best running back in the country right there.
Yeah,
that's what they
no
say.
doubt about it. They're getting a good one back here today. Le'Veon Moss looks like he's going to be able to go and go deep. Up top, that was a sight that we got used to in South Bend when Texas A&M came to town. These great receivers going deep.
There it is.
Jay Love getting loose again.
Another one for Love. There it is.
Oh God. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Okay.
You like that?
I mean, listen, you know what? It doesn't make me feel all that much better. I feel like they at least fixed Marcus Freeman's outfit in the game, which I know was kind of a point of contention.
5 cents. They had to run it 5 times for you guys to get that victory.
Okay.
On that one. It's 5 times. 5 times.
5 sims on that one. It doesn't make me feel any better because at the end of the day, the Canes are still the ones here representing, and deservedly so. They earned their way into the dance, and now they get to come out here and watch their team go to work. It's been fun seeing how many fans are willing to travel for these games because, listen, it's a daunting proposition if you're a fan. Your team could potentially have multiple games across a bunch of different sites if you make it all the way to the dance at the end of this. And so to make the decision to sell out, to come to an environment like this, and I think get to experience the home games, pretty cool for that group there. Something I know Notre Dame fans wish they could do. But I guess going back to that decision, did you have any issue with what the committee did and how they did it?
I think it was interesting, right? It was a unique spot for the committee and Notre Dame to be in. I go either way. I absolutely think Notre Dame had a case to be in, but for them to leave them out, I also get the reason and the rationale behind that. It would have been interesting to see what Notre Dame could have done had they been in the dance. You know, these are the two teams. These are the only teams that were able to beat them, Miami and Texas A&M. So I get it from both sides.
Yeah, I completely understand. What I always go back to, Alabama's resume, Miami's head-to-head win. All of them defensible and justifiable reasons. What we got on the Tuesday ranking shows that the rationale behind all that is where I think they got themselves into a little bit of trouble. And what I'm not going to do is make Notre Dame's problems the Group of Five's problems as we switch and look ahead to what's coming up this afternoon. Great stuff that you can check out on TNT with the 2 games that we have after this one here. And let's start with Ole Miss and Tulane. Tulane rolling into this one spicy. 11-2 off this season. Jake Retzlaff comes over from BYU, been slinging it for them, been deadly on the ground, finding the end zone as a rusher as well in a rematch of a game that we know. They went down to Oxford. Things didn't go well. It snowballed quickly. I think Ole Miss scored on their first 4 or 5 drives, and the game really felt over before it started. As you look at this one now, teams had time to grow into it. Ole Miss, as we know, dealing with Lane Kiffin, now in Baton Rouge, the head coach at LSU, Charlie Weiss Jr. and a number of other staffers who are going to join him, allowed to come back and coach Ole Miss. So we know Pete Golding has now been the man for the future. He's been named the head coach. There's no interim. He's the guy. He goes from D coordinator to head coach. Does all that volatility, even though on the other side, John Summerall's getting ready to go to Florida and he's still coaching for Tulane, how do you think that impacts this game?
Yeah, I think Ole Miss, they're going to want to show up, right? They're going to want to play to say, hey, it's not just about Lane Kiffin. We've got Trinidad Chambliss. We've got one of the best running backs in the country, and we've got a good team. I think for Tulane, how do they respond, right? Mentally, how do they feel after struggling so much? I mean, 45 points in the last matchup. They felt like they could do whatever they wanted, Ole Miss offensively and defensively. How do they respond in this one? Do they have the confidence to say, you know what? This is a new week. Any given Saturday, anything can happen across the board. How do they come out and play? And I do think and expect Ole Miss to come out and play well because they're a good football team. They're a good football team.
Yeah, and talking to a lot of people about how to try and game out what the Lane Kiffin move affects for certain people. And you see right here the list of coaches that are going to be making their way to LSU, but that are still coaching for this CFP run. And we know what that's about, right? We've heard from a number of these coaches because, again, the playoff field is full of them in the afternoon game of coaches that are going from one school to the other. You're trying to balance two jobs at once. You're not getting a lot of sleep. You're working on recruiting for your new school, getting the staff in place there, hiring everybody that needs to be in place by the time you hit campus and are ready for the portal after this playoff run gets done. And so it's a lot on their plate while also trying to go out here and game plan against a quality opponent. So that's the one thing I look for early, because with a team when you're the underdog, you're coming in here talent-wise, you're certainly not going to match up with Ole Miss man for man across the board. You got great players that you could certainly work with, but you got to be able to land a few punches early, because if that quicksand starts again, I always think at a game like that where there's a bit of a talent deficit, you only get a handful of big plays at the beginning to try and swing the balance before it's too late, and to try and maybe catch them while they're still working through, hey, what's our sideline communication like now on game day without Lane here being at the helm for those decisions? It taxes the whole chain of command differently, and it could be an opening for Tulane.
Well, and we're not talking about the talent on either side of the ball, but from a coaching perspective, they've got to be the squad that feels comfortable with their staff. Although it's leaving,
sure,
they're in the building right now. It's their guys. They know the positions to put those players in. Can they out-coach Ole Miss to a degree to create some explosives, some creative plays, and maybe some different ways for them to score the ball in this matchup?
And it's easier said than done when Trinidad Chambliss is the man on the other side slinging the rock. This is the first game that he started after the change was made in Oxford. He came in relief against Kentucky, got the game going here, and has been sensational ever since. One of the most dynamic playmakers in college football. As we mentioned, his play caller and Charlie Weiss Jr. still going to be there, so you'd still expect that same variety of an offense that's going to present some different wrinkles, try and lean on Kewan Lacey up front in that run game, more carries than anyone in college football at the Power 4 level, and then give him opportunities, those access throws that lead to some deep throws later on in this game. He's been one of the best quarterbacks in college football, and I think is one of the most reliable coming into this tournament.
Well, they've got a nasty backfield with Chambliss and Lacey back there. I mean, Lacey, for anybody out there that has not seen him play, that is a stud running back. You've got experience with Chambliss. They know their offense, and I think they will lean on both of those two guys. Run the ball with Lacey, feed him, let him establish that tone. If they do that, I think it's going to be tough for Tulane.
I would tend to agree on that. But like you said, on the other side for John Summerall, there's a reason Florida wanted him, right? The guy can coach. And so to have this opportunity, and how about him handling the breakup about as well as anyone could, donated, what, $100,000 to Tulane to try and get them started on the next leg of their journey going forward here. It's been pretty impressive to see the way he's handled a situation that we know. These are uncomfortable, all the talks about the calendar and the position it puts these coaches in. But moving from the group of 5 to a Power 4 job like Florida, I think everyone involved understands, is thankful for the time, and is trying to send it out on the right note now.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to do, and you've got to love the way that they're kind of wrapping this thing up. And he's a great coach. They're putting stuff together, and I think confidence for Tulane in this one, that's going to be big. And I think you'll be able to see it early. Let's see how they come out in those first 2 drives, how Tulane looks in that one, how the coaches have those players ready to play. I think we'll be able to see in that one quite early who's ready to play and who's still sleepwalking.
Yeah, it's going to be incredible. No sleepwalking out here as we see the Canes and the Aggies all on the field, getting ready for the action here coming up at Kyle Field in just a little bit. Looking like a beautiful day setting up out here. The sun's out shining, getting ready to come in, pop over the stadium. This fat guy football weather, it's just cool enough to give you that slight breeze when you start to break that sweat. It's like a natural air conditioning right in the torso. You work up a little bit of a lather, and that breeze comes through and cools everything down.
That's what I'm waiting for. I need to work some of that up right here. Yeah, I look like an old lineman over here, Golic. I'm ready for that, baby.
You know what? You got trench in your heart, and that's what I appreciate. Being an honorary offensive lineman, it's about what's ticking in your chest as much as what's wrapped around our waistlines in some cases. Let's look at the other game that's a part of this afternoon. Again, you can check it out on TNT. The desk from TNT, our studio crew, doing an amazing job on the post-game coverage of this game, helmed by Adam Lefko, Takeo Spikes. It's going to be a great group that you can check out there. But this game, James Madison and Oregon, I think for so many people, this is the source of a lot of the strife around the conversation. and I don't want to take this out on the Dukes. I don't want to take it out on anyone. It was an outlier. The ACC championship tiebreaker scenarios created some wonky results, and now we've got what we've got. And what we've got is a James Madison team that's rolling in here hot, won the Sun Belt this year, had a great win against Troy in that final, and has their hands full against one of the most talented teams. I think when you look at most of the betting markets, the way people handicap and power rank this Oregon team helmed by Dante Moore is one of the ones on the outside of those top 4 seeds people think is a real shot of winning a national title this year.
Yeah, because they've got Dante Moore, Dan Lanning, and that quarterback, that pairing this year, his first year taking over as the starter, he's been outstanding. Big-time playmaker. When they need to push the ball downfield, there may be no one better in the country than Dante Moore. Oregon's going to be ready to play. The consistency that Dan Lanning has been able to execute with quarterbacks that have come through there, I mean, here we go. Dante Moore, this rushing attack, they've got multiple ways to slice you up on Oregon's offensive side of the ball. You see the run right here on the screen. They've got tight ends. They've got receivers. Number 5, that's the key, though, Mike. Dante Moore.
He's got one of the most elite skill sets of any quarterback in college football. It's why he's got an interesting decision to make when it comes to the NFL this upcoming spring. But if he chooses to come back, this is another game where coordinators both going on to greener pastures. Will Stein taking the Kentucky job, Tosh Lupoy on defense taking the Cal job. So you've got 2 coordinators in Oregon that are both thinking about their upcoming jobs as well.
And can we just say, isn't this a part of what we wanted with the playoff, to get some of those Cinderella stories in the day? I mean, I've watched college football long enough. I remember when Boise State shouldn't have been in the game against Oklahoma. I remember when Appalachian State beat Michigan. This is what this was built for, to have 12 teams. JMU's in this for a reason. They were one of the better teams, the best teams in their conference. I am intrigued by this matchup. I know that Oregon is favored. They look like the favored opponent, the better team in this matchup. But when you have a tournament, a football tournament, anything can happen. And I think JMU, they're coming in, and you know who believes they can win? Every single person in that locker room for JMU. They think they deserve to be there. They think they can win this game, and we'll see that confidence probably early.
Absolutely. As you see Carson Beck, the source of a lot of confidence for Canes fans, getting loose on the field, not known necessarily for what he does with his legs, but mobile enough to move around that pocket and get you hurt. One of the teams that is making their first appearance in the college football playoff, along with JMU, Tulane, and I think you're right. I think we've sort of latched onto this as a proxy for being mad at the system for other reasons here. I totally agree. The group of 5, now group of 6, makes up over half of this sport. They need to be represented in whatever version of this we have going forward. And you know, if you even look all the way back in the Wayback Machine for old Boise State, Tulane beat USC years ago in the Cotton Bowl. NIU upset Notre Dame, who played in the national championship last year. USF beat Florida earlier this season. It's possible. It's not probable. And we certainly won't have a lot of years where we've got 2 in the tournament the way it does now. We're learning a lot of new things. Don't make it about them. As we look at this bracket, remind you to check out those games, Ole Miss and Tulane, Oregon and JMU on TNT. They're going to do a great job. And again, the post-game coverage, Champ Bailey, Adam Lefkoe, Takeo Spikes, Victor Cruz, a phenomenal group. Got to work with them all season long on TNT. They're the best in the business. It's a ton of fun, and they'll have you wrapped up on everything we see from that great game action that, again, you can check out on TNT's there. Really looking forward to that one right now. Anyone from the chat got anything interesting that's caught your eye here as we go? We got Santa Claus in Aggie gear outside this. Happy holidays to everyone that's watching, by the way, as Mr. and Mrs. Claus, apparently Texas A&M fans this weekend, taking time out of their busy schedule at the North Pole to make it happen down here.
Well, here's one right here. Let's go back to JMU. If there's going to be an upset,
sure.
If there's going to be, how do they do it? How does JMU get it done if it's going to happen?
So for JMU, it's about, they do the little things in football that you're supposed to do, right? Run and stop the run. Wayne Knight in the backfield, over 1,200 yards this season. The defense, one of the best run-stopping units in college football. I think they've only allowed somewhere around 990 yards rushing allowed all season by the Dukes on defense. And this Oregon offensive line, remember, was banged up at the end of the season. Going into the Washington game, they're a Joe Moore Award finalist group, the award that annually goes to the best O-line unit in college football, but it's still a tough task if that group is physically compromised a little bit. This is a group that's used to priding itself on that up front. I understand the strength of schedule numbers aren't there. The level of competition is going to jump up, and Noah Whittington, that backfield can rip. But this is a group that when you ask about the baseline football things you're supposed to do is run and stop the run, and they do that at an incredibly high level. Alonzo Barnett in that as well at quarterback. So I think those factors can always keep you in a football game, even one of this magnitude.
Do we got time for another one?
Yeah,
do we
absolutely.
have crowd noise. Crowd noise
Yes.
here,
Oh.
Kyle Field. How is that going to impact Carson Beck, what he does at the line of scrimmage? How do you think the crowd noise, they say it is loud. I've heard some coaches say there's no louder stadium in the country than Kyle Field. How is that going to impact Beck today?
Yeah, it rattles everything. So as a guy that played offensive line in college, you're worried about the communication, snap in and snap out. And for an offense in Miami that we talked about, with how they like to use Malachi Tony, there's a lot of bells and whistles to this. A lot of different formations, motions, moving guys around. You got to be able to communicate through all that. And so if you've got checks that you're trying to get through, we saw it in the game last night for Alabama. How many times was Ty Simpson up at the line late in the play clock trying to check to something? And you got to go, and you can't just tell it to one guy. You got to tell it to everybody up and down the offensive line. You got to communicate out to the wide receivers. All that stressed when you're just struggling to hear the guy right next to you. Like, I've been in stadiums where I'm the center trying to talk to the guard, and we can barely hear each other. So I know you got the player-to-coach communication on the sideline now for the quarterback that can help out some of that. But, man, even that we saw. They had to swap out Ty Simpson's helmet last night. So it's a tall task, and I think it just forces you to somewhat simplify your operation, especially early on the road, because you just want to get plays off. You don't want those flags to start to mount where you're working delay a game. You got offensive linemen jumping, because now you're backed up, you're in long downs and distances, and that opposing defense has a jump on the snap count. They know you're probably going silent, and they can make your life a living hell.
And that's what I'm interested to see. Are there any wrinkles? Do we see any hurry up? Do we see Miami try to move quick? Do we see something that we haven't typically seen from them this season in this game because of that noise? Because this is a home game. We're in the playoffs, but this is a home game for Texas A&M. I think the crowd is going to be rocking. I'm interested to see if Miami introduces a new wrinkle in this game.
Yeah, Mario Cristobal, not traditionally known as an aggressive coach, so I'm curious how willing he's going to be to go out and take some chances early. If you got a fourth down opportunity near and around midfield early on, a chance to go and try and strike first, give your team the right game script, and take this crowd out of it as much as you can early on, going to be huge from a coaching standpoint here. Mike Golic Jr., Ray G here with you. It's the Bleacher Report College Football Playoff pregame show presented by AT&T. Connecting changes everything. Let's connect this to the larger picture. We got teams on buys right now, sitting at home watching all the games that are taking place around college football at this point. They earned their position there. I'm sure they're a little bummed they don't get to host these fine home games, but Indiana, Ohio State, fresh off their Big Ten championship tilt, no surprise at 1-2. Georgia and Texas Tech crashing the party as the 4 seed here. I want to start with the Red Raiders because they came into this season with all the fanfare, right? Everyone talked about, they were kind of like this year's Ohio State. You knew the price tag on the roster. You saw all the expensive transfer players coming in, especially on defense here. Do you believe this team is actually well positioned now to be a team that can win the national championship this year as the 4 seed?
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you talk about defensively, they've got not just one edge rusher, they've got 2 guys that are probably going to be drafted quite high. They've got a great linebacker. A lot of people thought he should have been in New York for the Heisman ceremony, right?
Talk about it.
Texas Tech is legit. This team, both offensively and defensively, hell yeah, they deserve to be in this spot, and I think they can make a run deep in these playoffs.
Yeah, that becomes the interesting part for me. So I got to cover this team early in the season against Kent State, overmatched, but just to look inside the program. And you're right, talking to these guys, Romello Height, David Bailey on the other side here, Jacob Rodriguez, the stash, the build.
Yeah.
He's a Madden creative linebacker, but I look at that group. The offense becomes the question to me because there's gaudy numbers, but we saw in the Big 12 championship game, a rematch against BYU, who was one of the other best teams in the Big 12 conference this year. That offense still struggled in the red zone. At times, Baron Morton had a few errant throws. They get a bunch of extra chances because that defense turned the ball over at an incredibly high level. They can do the most powerful thing in sports, turn their 4 guys up front loose and say, go rush the quarterback, we'll handle the back end with 7. And so you're going to have those opportunities. They're another team I want to see when you go up against someone who's also got some firepower offensively and maybe can land a punch or 2 against that great defense. Can their offense finish enough in the red zone, put 7 on the board instead of 3, those 4-point plays in the middle of games? That's been my big concern because quietly, while the numbers show it good. I think on the field, there's still some questions about, can this offense be forceful at the line of scrimmage in the red zone, and can Baron Morton make enough of those high-level throws?
Well, he's got to do it. He's got to make those throws. And again, when you think about Texas Tech and these playoffs, Mike, I don't know if there's been a truly dominant team from start to finish this college football season. So when you've got some of these new names entering the dance, putting their team and their performance on wax on the college football playoff stage, I love the fact that they can lean on those guys up front defensively, right? Can their defense put their offense in some advantageous situations by creating some sacks, maybe forcing a turnover? They're going to have to get it done in this one, but I think they've got the firepower defensively to help that offense out a little bit.
Yeah, if there's any defense that's up for the task, and you see Jacob Rodriguez, the job that he did this year, you know, I played with a guy back in 2012 when I was at Notre Dame, played with a guy in Manti Te'o who finished second in the Heisman that year, 7 interceptions and an off-ball linebacker. You look and see the impact plays, interceptions, forced fumbles. He started his career, as we all now know, as a quarterback in Virginia, and they gave him a couple Wildcat reps at the end of the season. So it's been amazing to watch what he did. And last year, remember, he was a guy that was a first-team All-Big 12 performer, led the team in tackles, and then got all these great guys in front of him to help make life even easier. Let's go to the 3 seed. The Georgia Bulldogs might be one of the hottest teams in college football right now. They're fresh off an SEC championship performance where they famously held Alabama to -3 rushing yards. But it feels like defensively, they've gotten back up to the standard after being in some shootouts earlier in this year. That seems like Kirby Smart's bunch might be back to the level that we've seen them, maybe not since 2021, 2022, in terms of being the team that feels like they can do it.
Well, it feels like they're back, right? It may not be the same team that Roquan Smith and Malachi Starks, but they're playing better defensive football. They're getting healthy at the running back position. And Gunnar Stockton, the quarterback, his confidence is starting to grow. They use his legs. Can he distribute the ball? It feels like Kirby's got this team back on track for this iteration of the Georgia Bulldogs.
It's been incredible. By the way, I just got distracted by Shantraub4439 in the chat. If Texas Tech wins, will Golic get a Rodriguez? If Texas Tech wins the national championship, yes. The problem is, my mustache is not as strong as his, and the worst part is, I got this double chin down here. The beard is actually a clever disguise for all the meat hanging off the bottom of my face. It's a Golic family trait, and I need this to cover it up. But yes, you have my word here, chat. If Texas Tech wins the national championship, we're going to stash it up.
Hold him to it, chat. Hold him to it, chat.
I might have to get a little Just for Men in there, too. I'm a little light up top. I need a little help. He really got it. And what a great story for Jacob Rodriguez. Wife's a helicopter pilot in the Army. Just an absolute badass and a family full of them here. But Georgia on the other side, Gunnar Stockton at quarterback. Also a really interesting force. Last year in the college football playoff, remember, Carson Beck goes down in the SEC championship game, rallies in the second half and helps them there, and then goes to the CFP and has a tough outing against a Notre Dame team that ends up playing in the national championship. He's come back this year and been an incredibly gritty player. Those 442 rushing yards, hard-earned for him, and have always come in some important moments when, hey, all else fails, I got to break the glass and go. If Zachariah Branch isn't open downfield somewhere, as that started to come online for them a little more, what do you think he's capable of as we get to the college football playoff stage?
You use the word gritty. Those 442 yards, they weren't wide open lanes. I mean, Gunnar Stockton is out there taking shots, but you know what he does? He gets up every single time. He gets up, he lines back up under center to get his team ready to go, and I think that confidence that he had going down the stretch, winning the SEC, having the week off, listening to what everybody's saying, who should be in, who should be out, I think Stockton's experience down the stretch and his toughness, that gritty nature that you talked about, that's going to lend well for Georgia in that matchup.
Yep, offensive line, big, imposing. They've done a good job of getting downhill late here in the season. You saw that as the difference, and the defense kind of back to presenting those same problems we've become accustomed to among Kirby Smart. And then there's the Big Ten up top at 1 and 2. Indiana at number 1, Ohio State at number 2. Is this Indiana's tournament to lose in your mind? Because I still see a lot of places where Ohio State, despite that head-to-head loss, is actually favored to win the title for some people.
I think there are a lot of people out there that still have a hard time believing that this Indiana team is that good in football. And the answer is yes, they're good on both sides of the ball. Offensively and defensively. I mean, the Big Ten is loaded. Indiana is awesome right now, 13-0. Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, receivers, defense, and then like you said, Ohio State. both of these two teams are #1 and #2 for a reason.
Yep.
They've got squads.
No, it's an incredible group. I mean, the Indiana offense gets talked about understandably because of Fernando Mendoza.
Right.
He's a Heisman Trophy winner, the first in school history. The job that Curt Cignetti has done in 2 years, and especially if they cap it with a national championship, is the most impressive turnaround in the history of the sport. Like, all respect to Bill Snyder at Kansas State, who I think was the consensus answer for that before this, and what he did for that program coming in and turning it all the way around. I think Curt Cignetti in 2 years, taking Indiana from a program that I think had 4 winning seasons in the last 30 years to one that's now won double-digit games each of the last 2 years, been a college football playoff participant for both. You see right here, we put together a little list of the top 5 players in the college football playoff right now.
Okay.
It felt disingenuous to not have the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, Fernando Mendoza, at 1. And he's been awesome. Like, you look at what Indiana does on offense, it's a lot of spread RPO stuff, which means the offensive line's got to work well, and your quarterback's got to be able to put the ball in some really great spots for his receivers, and he does that. Then I go to Jeremiah Smith, who the scariest thing for everyone in the CFP field should be the tweet that he sent out after Mekhi Lemon was named the Biletnikoff Award winner. Jeremiah Smith appears highly motivated as what should be the best wide receiver in college football. Not draft eligible this year. He'd probably be #1 on everyone's board for that, too. And then I got the Texas Tech defensive crew. And I had to put David Bailey above Jacob Rodriguez. Maybe this is my former O-line bias, but when I look at a guy up front that can wreck a game sacking the quarterback, Jacob Rodriguez has been incredible, and he makes a ton of plays in the back end of that defense. But to me, the superpower of that team is what we talked about before, the fact that you can rush 4, and opposing offenses have to change the way they game plan. You've got to have 2 sets of hands on David Bailey on critical downs, or else your quarterback's probably going to be staring up at the sky from the grass. And so I had him slightly above Jacob Rodriguez, even though they're both phenomenal players there. And then Caleb Downs at Ohio State, one of the most versatile athletic safety prospects we've seen in quite some time. When you got NFL people wondering, hey, are we going to draft a safety in like the top 10 or the top 5? You're probably doing something pretty special.
Absolutely. Downs is incredible. You talked about Rodriguez, Bailey, Jeremiah Smith. My goodness. I'll throw a couple more out. Kenyon Sadiq at Oregon.
God, yes.
I mean, you talk about a playmaker at the tight end position. Kenyon Sadiq, incredible. And then I'll also say right here on this field, right, that we're going to watch, those 2 defensive ends that we talked about with Ruben Bain and Cassius Howell got to be up there as well.
They were both just on the outside looking in. Like, again, it's hard to pick. It's like your favorite flavor of ice cream with these 2 guys. For Cassius Howell, he is an incredibly dynamic, high motor player. Ruben Bain is he's like trying to block a pony keg.
Oh my gosh.
Like, I think, again, former alignment. He's so low to the ground. He's so powerful. He's fast enough to make you work to get back upfield. And then the minute he puts his cleats in the ground and decides to put 2 hands in your chest, we've seen guys on skates getting dumped all year long. So you're right. Those guys absolutely deserve. Kenyon Sadiq, too.
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, an absolute Adonis. You saw him, and they've had good tight ends there in Oregon. Will Stein's done a great job with that offense. It's why Kentucky was so excited to get him. Sadiq has been built like a first-rounder since day 1, and given the runway this year, he's started to play like it, too.
Absolutely. Dynamism, dynamic tight end, right? Can do a little bit of everything. Up the seams, they give him carries out of the backfield. He's explosive. There are a lot of good players in this college football playoff tournament. Mike, it's going to be fun from start to finish.
It certainly is. Arvell Reese at Ohio State.
Sonny Styles.
Again, I looked at a first-round mock before, and there's like 5 Ohio State guys in that group. So you're going against an NFL defense. Matt Patricia's an NFL defensive coordinator, now turned college defensive coordinator. It is dangerous, dangerous stuff for him there. So an incredible group. Hit us up in the chat. Let us know if you have any disagreement. I'd imagine this was the spot that I figured the chat was going to rear their head and tell me I was a moron for leaving out their favorite player.
Well, there is some Arvell Reese, some Sonny Styles, disrespecting Styles and Reese. Hey, we're not disrespecting. Those are great players.
Hey, man.
Those are great players.
We're talking about the best of the best. Like, these are just minor points that separate all of these guys when you get to a conversation of this level. Speaking of a conversation of this level, I see Carson Beck legacy game in the chat from somebody here. Could go a long way. I'm sure he's a guy that maybe doesn't feel like, especially after that 2-game stretch in the middle, 2 out of 3 that they lost, maybe doesn't feel like he's getting the respect that he deserved. How do you look at him as a prospect in this game?
You know, Beck has got experience. SEC, now he's doing it in Miami, and there are spurts and times where he looks like a very, very good quarterback. It's the consistency, Mike. When things go bad, can you right the ship, right? Can you turn it around after a turnover, after a sack, after an interception? That's what I want to see with Carson Beck a little bit more. I absolutely think he's on the radar. He's got the physical tools. He's got the experience, but you got to be a little more consistent.
Ryan Ribbs in the chat, fate of the universe on the line. I want Iguodala. I want Carson Beck. Oh, my God. Max Kellerman giving us a gem for the all-time here. But I'm with you. I think what you want from a quarterback, and the way we judge most of these guys, what do you do in a clean pocket? When Carson Beck got a clean pocket, he can play point guard as well as any quarterback in the field right now. He's not going to get away from anything. I think I saw the slowest spin move known to man on tape in the pit game. You don't expect him to do anything dynamic with his legs, but with his arm going back there playing the position, can do it as well as anybody here. Big body, hard to bring down in the pocket as well. College football, we know, always going to be about the quarterbacks. We've got a bunch of good ones in the transfer portal right now. Just heard word that Rocco Becht, the Iowa State quarterback, plans to enter the transfer portal. He's a guy that's been sensational there, multi-year starter under Matt Campbell, who now takes over at Penn State. So certainly something to keep an eye on there, see if maybe he follows his former head coach to Happy Valley and tries to get it going there. So big time news. Rocco Becht, another dual threat guy, maybe not the best arm in the world, but tough runner in the design run game at times for Iowa State. Had two great NFL receivers to work with last year. The offense changed drastically this year. Kind of went back to that multi-tight end ground and pound attack that we've been used to there.
Mark, the portal, Rocco Becht. We've got Carson Beck on the field.
Yep.
Do you like this era of college football where the quarterbacks, the players can move around and so much change and adjustment at the end of every season, it seems like?
Yeah, it certainly does. I think it's a positive overall because remember back in the day, I mean, when we're growing up, USC stockpiling quarterbacks. Ohio State always had all these guys sitting in the room together, and then we get to see them every 3 years when they would wait for their turn. Now those guys go out. Fernando Mendoza wins the Heisman this year as a transfer coming from Cal to Indiana, and so I think it can improve more teams quicker because we know right, wrong, or indifferent, quarterback gets a lot more of the credit and blame than they probably deserve on both ends of that, but they can impact the game in a way that few positions can. So I like that. I know this era presents a lot of challenges for coaches in terms of roster construction and things of that nature. So I feel for them. I'm sure we're going to get more rigidity in how that's built in the future. But for right now, boy, it makes you feel like with those guys, Dylan Raiola in the portal, Sam Levitt from Arizona State putting his name into the ring as well. There's a lot of different guys out there to keep an eye on that are surely going to change how we view next season in a heartbeat once they get picked. And speaking of quarterbacks, we know Fernando Mendoza was the winner of the Heisman Trophy. But there was another quarterback, really two. Julian Sands, shout out to him along for the ride, fourth in the Heisman voting there after a phenomenal season for the Buckeyes. But we know Fernando Mendoza made a lot of headlines over the Heisman weekend. The Vanderbilt quarterback that's the most impactful player in the history of that program. What he, Clark Lee, Jerry Kill very quietly, who came over with him from New Mexico State, have done is incredible there. And it's a 10-win season, one of the best in school history. But we know, didn't exactly cover himself in glory with the response after, the F all the voters on Instagram, the videos from the club later on with the F the Hoosiers on the bottle service. Like, I'm always amazed at how much stuff they'll let you put up there. The amount of people like, don't press send, Herm Edwards used to always say, you got to go through a hell of a process to get it up on the bottle service sign. So don't do whatever that process is. Did this change the way that you viewed Diego Pavia's season, his career at all, the result we saw in the response at the Heisman ceremony?
I don't think anything can take away what Diego Pavia did on the field. On the field of play, he was incredible. He was outstanding. What he was able to do for that team, you can't take that away, but it's hard to ignore what happened after the fact, right? It's hard to ignore what he said, what he did, some of the antics off of the field. But 3,100 yards, 800 yards rushing, 27 touchdowns. To have this team in that position, his season was incredible. It's what happened after the season that's a little disappointing.
Yeah, you want to see a guy make better decisions than that, but it still doesn't change the way I view the impact that he had on that university. The season he had, I'm fortunate enough to be a Heisman voter. I had him second on my ballot behind Jeremiah Love and one spot in front of Fernando Mendoza, and I don't feel any differently about that. I still think that's a guy that impacted the game in such an incredible and unique way. Speaking of incredible and unique, we got that scene outside of the stadium here. We're in College Station. We're down here at Kyle Field. Mike Golic Jr., Ray G, taking you guys up to kick off Texas A&M in Miami here in the first round of the college football playoff, the first playoff game hosted here at Kyle Field. We can't wait for the atmosphere, but now it's time to make some picks. We got to pick our brackets. We got to put it on wax here, get ready to get roasted. So Indiana already did us, or excuse me, Alabama already did us the favor of moving on to Indiana. So this will be my bracket pick. Let's start with the 12-5 matchup. I'll pick Oregon in that one, and on the other side, we'll go and put Ole Miss ahead ahead of Tulane. I appreciate the group of 5. I'm not the Notre Dame fan that's going to say those guys shouldn't be in there because Notre Dame should have here. You earn your spot in there. The system is what it is and happened this year. Go and try and have a good time and make something happen. But I'll move Ole Miss and Oregon on, and I'll move Texas A&M on from this game. I do think that home field advantage of 2 incredibly similar teams ends up being the difference in what should be a tight, defensively led game in this one. So Ole Miss versus Georgia, Oregon versus Texas Tech, Alabama, IU, and Texas A&M, Ohio State here. And unfortunately, I think it could get a little chalky in some of these. I'll take IU passing Alabama. I think they're the more complete team on both sides of the football. I think Alabama being so one-dimensional on offense, forcing Ty Simpson to drop back and make so many incredible plays. Jeremy Bernard, that was awesome last night. I don't think you're going to be able to subsist on a diet of that against this Indiana Hoosiers team. Texas A&M, Ohio State, I'm going to take the Buckeyes on this one.
Okay.
Spoiler alert, I think Ohio State's got a pretty good chance of doing the whole back-to-back thing here, especially another team led by defense. I feel like we talk about that a lot. Ole Miss and Georgia.
Ooh.
This one's real interesting, and I think this one is where you feel that loss of Lane Kiffin. When you're going great on great in the coaching matchup, the familiarity that Kirby Smart and Lane have had over these years, I think the Bulldogs are playing the brand of physical football that's quite honestly made them the perfect foil for teams like Ole Miss in the past. When you can have the guys in the box, those 4, 5, 6 guys that can handle Kejuan Lacey in that run game and then allocate resources to what Trinidad Chambliss is going to do spreading the ball. I'll take the Dogs over Ole Miss. I think Oregon's got the chance to upset Texas Tech. I think I'm going to take the Ducks over the Red Raiders in that matchup here. I think if Dante Moore and this offensive line, if they're healthy in front of Dante Moore, I think the Ducks can keep this thing moving. And I think for the national championship game,
where are we going?
We're talking about a rematch.
Oh, baby.
It's Big Ten versus the world. I'll go IU versus Ohio State, but I'll give the Buckeyes the win in this one and say Ohio State repeats as national champions in the college football playoffs 12-team era.
Okay, all right, Golic. Listen, I've got a couple that we may have a little difference here.
I'm very excited because I feel bad. My board's a little bit chalky there outside of the Oregon stuff, but even the betting markets kind of vibe along with that. So give me your picks right now. Show me something interesting here because I feel like I was a little boring.
No. I think it was good. Now let's talk about this, right? So JMU, Oregon. We talked about if it were going to happen, how would it happen?
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
If it were going to happen, I'm not going to do it.
Okay.
I'm just saying, if it were going to,
you were bringing me up there. I was like, oh, is he going to drop the hammer?
With defensively, Oregon, offensively, they're awesome. You've got a quarterback. I saw somebody in the chat ask, can this playoff run for Dante Moore position him to be the #1 overall pick in the NFL draft?
Yeah.
QB1 over Fernando Mendoza. I think Oregon gets it done versus JMU. They face off against Texas Tech. We're here. We're on Kyle Field. It feels good. The crowd is starting to come in. It feels like this team is going to get it done versus Miami. I think we're going to have a great game, though. I honestly think this is going to be a battle,
yes.
right? Who makes the critical error? Who's able to rebound from the mistake? Because they will happen. I think A&M beats Miami today. We're here. I'm going to take A&M.
All right.
I think it sets up for an interesting matchup versus Ohio State. But right here, this next bracket, this next pool that we're going to talk about, okay? Ole Miss, I believe, will beat Tulane.
Okay.
I think Ole Miss gets it done today. Too talented of a team. They are a very talented team. But I'm going to stick here. I'm going to stick with this SEC matchup.
Okay.
Georgia versus Ole Miss, and I hear you. I do think that Kirby Smart absolutely should have the advantage coaching over this Ole Miss team. But call me a sucker. I love physical running backs.
All right.
Lacey with Chambliss. I think there's something there. I think this Ole Miss team is going to show up and say, damn it, no Lane Kiffin, no problem. We're going to show you that we've got the playmakers on both sides of the ball to slow Gunner Stockton in this offense down, to make our plays against this defense. Ole Miss is going to upset Georgia in that one right there. So go ahead, move that over. Ole Miss gets it done. Now, A&M, Ohio State. I think Ohio State is incredible. Defensively, you've got first-rounders all over there. You talked about your favorite. You talked about Caleb Downs and how good he was. Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese. They are that good. And they've got Jeremiah Smith, okay? And I do think that even though we're here at A&M, Jeremiah Smith and the Ohio State Buckeyes, they get it done and they move on. They move on to that Final Four. Alabama, Indiana. Here's what I'll say, Mike.
Okay.
And there's something about the way Alabama battled back last night. There's something about the way that when they were down, and when you're watching, I'm watching, I'm thinking, oh no, this is going to go sideways. Oh no. But it was like, oh yeah. Ty Simpson, they've got to be able to run the ball. That's a little concerning. Roll Tide.
Wow.
Roll Tide.
So Alabama
Mike,
pulling the upset over 1 seed Indiana.
Over what? It works both ways, right?
Sure.
Indiana, they've got to show. This is their first time in the dance. This is the first time they've been in this situation where
as the hunted, last year they're coming in, questions about their schedule. This year everyone treats them like the big bad, and you want to see them handle that.
I just want to see it, right? They go out there and handle.
I just want to see something.
I just want to see it, right? They go out there and handle that, no issues. But I've got Alabama upsetting Indiana, and then right here Texas Tech versus Oregon. I'm going to ride with Oregon. I think Oregon beats Texas Tech. I love the quarterback, and that's the consistency. We talked about Baron Morton, how inconsistent he had been at times. I think Dante Moore, best quarterback in the game. They've got playmakers. It's going to be a hellacious task for Dante Moore against that defense.
Yes.
But that could be the game.
Great on great. That offensive line, that defensive front, I love it.
There you go. So now we got the Final Four. We got Bama. We've got Oregon, Ole Miss, and Ohio State. I think right here, this is where Oregon they beat Alabama.
Okay.
Oregon beats Alabama. Oregon is in the national championship. Then you've got Ole Miss versus Ohio State. How does this one play out? And I think the Buckeyes are just too good.
Yep.
The Buckeyes are just too good of a team. I think the way that Ryan Day has this team playing, it just seems like they've been focused all year, right? We know the objective. We've got task at hand. I know it was tough versus Indiana, but I think you'll have that team ready to play. You get another Big Ten. Here it is, Big Ten National Championship. You got Oregon. You've got Ohio State. Jeremiah Smith.
Okay.
Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah.
That is the
really
X
is all
factor.
you have to say.
That's the X factor right there. I love Julian saying Bo Jackson can run the ball for that team. But man, Jeremiah Smith, I think he's going to be the difference maker in that one. So in an Oregon-Ohio State National Championship, I've got the Buckeyes winning.
All right, there we go. So there you have it. Both of us have the Buckeyes taking all that institutional knowledge, getting that monkey off their back. If you're Ryan Day, all the questions about your job last year faded into the distance. You won your national championship. You won the game against Michigan, and now you can go into it with all the knowledge of how to go and get that done. So we both have that, and we both got to get the hell off the field right now. They're getting ready to play a football game behind us. I don't know if you guys have seen, heard, watched all this. Make sure, speaking of watching, you check in on TNT. Great games coming up this afternoon. Again, 3:30 Eastern, Tulane and Ole Miss, the Grove, Oxford. It's going to be awesome. And then the Dukes and James Madison head to Autzen tonight for a nightcap, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Check it out on TNT. And again, Adam Lefkoe, Takeo Spikes, Champ Bailey, Victor Cruz, all going to have you covered on that post game, one of the best studio shows in college football. This has been the Bleacher Report, college football playoff pregame presented by AT&T. Connecting changes everything. Good luck, Aggie fans, Hurricane fans, and every player and coach on the field. It's going to be an incredible scene here at Kyle Field. Thanks for checking us out. Enjoy the games.